Okay, so have you heard about this Bonnie Blue?
Yeah, it's quite the story, isn't it?
I mean, it's just wild, right? Making money on OnlyFans by like sleeping with college students and filming it. Talk about grabbing headlines. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's really got people talking, and I mean, from all different angles.
It really seems like people just don't know what to make of it, you know?
Definitely. Like, is she an entrepreneur? Is she exploiting people? It's a real lightning rod.
For sure. For sure. I mean, she's just stirring things up big time. But before we get into all that, maybe like the ethics and the bigger picture and all that stuff, let's try to stick to the facts, at least what we know so far, you know?
Yeah, definitely lay the groundwork.
Exactly, yeah. So she's claiming to have slept with, get this, 158 men
Wow,
in just 2 weeks at Nottingham Trent University in the UK.
that's quite a claim.
Oh, and it gets even crazier. Are you ready for this? She's saying she wants to sleep with 900 people in one day.
900
Mm-hmm.
to break a world record.
Yep, that's what she's saying.
It's certainly attention grabbing. I mean, you got to wonder, is this real, or is this just a big publicity stunt?
Yeah, true, true. I mean, maybe it's all just for show, right? But even if it is, she's definitely going about it in a pretty unique way. I mean, she's making it her whole marketing strategy to go to these universities and like actively seek out students to, well, participate.
Yeah, and that's where things start to get, well, a little ethically murky.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you've got someone with a big online following making tons of money and they're targeting, well, college students.
Who, let's face it, are probably pretty impressionable,
Yeah,
especially in that environment with all the social pressure and stuff.
absolutely. And to make it even more complicated, she's super open about why she's doing it. Like one article quoted her saying she was bored of the 9 to 5 and wanted to go out with a bang.
Go out with a bag,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, and she's also said she wants to, get this, educate late teens about having a healthy sex life.
Educate. That's that's an interesting choice of words. I mean, it's one way to frame it, right? But it kind of makes you think, is this really about education? Or is it about something else?
Right, right. It definitely feels like she's playing a role, trying to create this image to appeal to a certain crowd.
Yeah. Hard to say how much is genuine and how much is just, calculated for shock value.
Totally. Okay, ready for the biggest bombshell in all of this?
Oh, there's more.
Her parents.
What they know.
Oh, they know, they know. And get this, they're totally on board, like actively involved.
No way.
Seriously. Her mom was making signs encouraging students to, well, let's just say get with her daughter. And she's even helping clean up after filming sessions.
Wow. That's next level supportive parenting.
And then there's her dad casually handing out her business cards at the pub.
So they're just like totally cool with the whole thing.
Apparently. When a reporter asked her mom about it, she just shrugged and said, it's just part of her job. I'm proud of her. I don't mind. It's like they've normalized it all.
Yeah, it definitely challenges the traditional idea of what it means to be a supportive family.
Hmm.
And it really makes you think about how society's views are changing, especially with, the internet and everything.
For sure. But here's the thing. Not everyone is buying Bonnie's whole story. She's getting a ton of criticism. Some people are even calling her actions like predatory,
Predatory, how so?
especially because of her claims about quote unquote taking virginities.
Okay, yeah. Now that's definitely crossing a line for a lot of people.
Right. And it raises all these questions about whether she's exploiting these students. Maybe they're just drawn in by the attention or the money or the whole, I don't know, the whole idea of being part of something like this.
Especially since, we're talking about young people who might not be fully equipped to deal with those kinds of situations.
Exactly. And there's also the whole question of power dynamics. I mean,
Yeah.
she has this platform, this persona, and that gives her a lot of influence.
It's not exactly a level playing field, is it?
Not at all. And speaking of not being totally upfront, you ready for another twist?
Get me?
One of the articles mentioned that at least one of the guys involved turned out to be a professional adult film actor.
Wait, seriously, so is this whole thing staged?
Maybe. I mean, it makes you wonder, right? If she's willing to bring in actors, then how much of what she's saying is actually true?
Yeah, it definitely casts doubt on her whole narrative. Maybe she's just, inflating the numbers, making it all seem bigger and crazier than it really is, just for the publicity.
Maybe. So to recap, we've got this wild story, right? Bonnie Blue making these outrageous claims, her parents cheering her on, and all these ethical concerns.
Like a train wreck you can't look away from.
Totally. But what does it all mean? Like, how does this fit into the bigger picture, with the internet and the adult entertainment industry and everything?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where things get really interesting. I think this whole Bonnie Blue saga is a perfect example of how much things have changed. We're seeing a massive shift in the adult entertainment industry, especially with platforms like OnlyFans.
So we're not just talking about her, we're talking about a whole new way of doing things.
Exactly. It's not just about studios and big companies anymore. Now, anyone can create and distribute content right from their own home.
And that creates a whole new set of challenges, I bet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it raises some serious questions about, how this affects young people. Like, are they developing unrealistic expectations about sex and relationships? Are they being exposed to potentially harmful content?
Yeah, that's a scary thought. It's like a whole new world out there compared to when we were growing up.
Right. Back then, the stuff was hidden, it was taboo. Now, it's everywhere you look, and we're only just beginning to understand the impact it's having.
It's like we've opened Pandora's box and we're not sure how to close it.
Exactly. And Bonnie Blue's story, as extreme as it is, it's like holding a mirror up to society and forcing us to confront these uncomfortable truths.
Yeah, she's definitely pushing buttons and making us think about things we might not want to think about.
But sometimes, those are the most important conversations to have.
Well said. And I think we've just scratched the surface here. This is a conversation that needs to continue. So we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into the ethical debates surrounding Bonnie Blue's actions and explore the potential impact of all this readily available adult content on young people.
It's like, it's almost overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
All this content just out there for anyone to see.
And it makes you wonder, right? What's it doing to young people? Like, are they getting the wrong idea about sex, about relationships?
That's a huge concern. I mean, there's research that shows that seeing this kind of stuff, especially when you're young, can really mess with your head.
Really? Like, how so?
Well, for example, some studies, they found a link between, early exposure to pornography and things like risky sexual behavior.
Oh, wow.
And even like objectifying your partner, seeing them as, I don't know, less than human.
It's pretty disturbing.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
And, Bonnie Blue, she talks about being sex positive, all that. But the stuff she's putting out there,
Yeah.
it could actually be contributing to a culture that, objectifies women and makes sex seem like it's just this simple thing, no big deal.
Right, like it's just a game or something.
Exactly. And I think that's a conversation we need to be having, like, as a society. How do we deal with this new reality, where young people are constantly bombarded with this stuff?
It's not like we can just put the genie back in the bottle, right?
Exactly. So we need to figure out how to, I don't know, how to equip them to handle it, to think critically about it.
Because it's not just about the content itself, right? It's about the way it's being presented. Like Bonnie Blue, she's all about breaking records, getting attention, being outrageous.
Right. It's all about performance, about validation.
And that can be really damaging, don't you think? Especially for young people who are still figuring things out, trying to understand what healthy relationships are all about.
Absolutely. It can create all sorts of problems, like feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, pressure to, live up to these impossible standards.
It's a recipe for disaster, really.
Pretty much.
Okay, so let's talk about consent for a minute. Bonnie says she's super careful about making sure everyone's of legal age and that they're consenting. But remember that whole thing about the professional actors?
Yeah,
That really throws a wrench into things, doesn't it?
for sure. I mean, if she's blurring the lines between, real life and acting, then how can we even be sure that the consent is real?
Right. And even if everyone is of age and they sign the forms and all that, there's still this power dynamic at play. He's this online personality. She has a following. She has influence.
It's like, imagine a young musician signing a contract with a big record label, right? Even if they understand the legal stuff, they might not fully grasp what they're getting into.
Yeah, like the long-term consequences.
Exactly. And with consent, it's not just a one-time thing, right? It's an ongoing process. It requires communication, transparency, and a real awareness of those power dynamics.
Which is probably even more complicated in the online world, right?
Oh, absolutely. With OnlyFans and these other platforms, you've got this layer of anonymity, and then there's this pressure to create content that's more and more extreme just to get attention.
So it's like, how can you even know if the consent is truly freely given?
It's a really tough question. And it raises even bigger questions about the responsibility of these platforms. Like, what are they doing to protect their creators, their consumers?
Yeah, are they doing enough to prevent exploitation?
Yeah.
Make sure the content is consensual?
These are tough questions, and I don't know that they're easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to have.
Absolutely. We need to shine a light on these issues, especially when it comes to this whole online world, which is still kind of the Wild West in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's not just about the adult industry either. We're seeing these same issues pop up everywhere online, from social media to gaming.
It's like we're all still trying to figure out the rules of the game, right? Like what's okay, what's not okay.
And in the meantime, stories like Bonnie Blue's, they're like a warning sign. They remind us to be critical, to think about the ethics of what we're doing online.
So I'm curious, what do you think this whole thing means for Bonnie Blue in the long run? I mean, she's obviously made this choice to be provocative, to push the limits, but what are the consequences going to be?
That's hard to say. I mean, on one hand, she's definitely gotten famous. She's making money. She's challenging the status quo. But on the other hand, she's opened herself up to a lot of criticism, a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, and the internet never forgets, right?
Exactly. Even if she decides to, I don't know, walk away from all of this someday, it's going to be out there forever.
It's a good reminder that the choices we make online, they have real consequences, and sometimes those consequences can last a lifetime.
It's like we're all building these digital identities for ourselves, and we need to be careful about what we put out there.
Totally. We need to think about the long game, not just the quick hit of attention or validation.
And I think that's a great point to transition into the final part of our deep dive, where we'll take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the broader implications of this story and what it says about us as a culture.
You know, this whole world record thing, I can't get it out of my head. Like, is that even real?
It probably is somewhere out there.
I mean, if it is, what does that even say about us? Like, that we even keep track of something like that?
It's pretty messed up, right? It's like we've
Yeah.
turned sex into this competition.
Yeah.
Who can have the most, who can be the most outrageous? It's all about numbers, not about actual connection.
Yeah, it's like we have to quantify everything these days, don't we? How many likes, how many followers, how many partners? It's like we've forgotten what really matters.
The quality of the experience, the emotional intimacy, all of that gets lost.
And I think that's what's so disturbing about Bonnie Blue's story. It's like she's just taking that to the extreme.
Right. And it's not just about sex either, is it? I mean, this whole focus on quantity over quality, it's everywhere.
True. Like, think about the news, social media, even how we measure our own self-worth. It's all about the numbers.
And I think it's making us more isolated, more disconnected from each other. It's like this weird paradox. We're more connected than ever through technology, but we've never felt more alone.
It's like we're all just little islands shouting into the void, hoping someone will hear us.
Yeah, and those shouts, they often get reduced to just numbers, likes, retweets. It's dehumanizing.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that's the danger of stories like Bonnie Blue's. It's like she's a symptom of this larger problem, this cultural shift towards emptiness almost.
It's like we're so busy chasing these fleeting moments of validation that we're missing out on the real thing, the real connection, the real intimacy.
So where do we go from here? I mean, it feels kind of hopeless, Like, is this just the way things are now?
I don't know. It's tough. But I think the first step is just being aware of it, right? Recognizing the problem.
Like being more mindful of how we're using technology, how we're letting it shape our lives.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, if enough of us start to question these things, to push back against this culture of emptiness, well, maybe we can start to change things.
It's a long shot, but hey, you got to start somewhere, right?
I think so. We can't just give up hope.
So I guess that's the takeaway from all of this, from Bonnie Blue and her parents and the whole crazy situation. It's a wake-up call, a reminder to be more mindful, more intentional about how we're living our lives online and offline.
And to remember that real connection, real intimacy, those things can't be measured in likes or followers or, world records.
They're about something much deeper, something much more human, and that's something worth fighting for.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this deep dive. It's been, let's just say it's been a journey. Definitely a lot to unpack.
And to everyone listening, we hope this is giving you some things to think about, maybe even sparked some conversations, because these are conversations we need to be having now more than ever.
Absolutely. We all need to be part of the solution.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay connected to each other, not just to your devices.